Well, it's a pleasure now to welcome to Radio Enfield Alison Kira, who's the Development Manager of the Royal Free Charity. So hello to you, Alison.
Hello there.
Thanks for coming up today. Now, I guess a lot of people listening have probably been reading the local paper about the Chase Farm charity that's just been launched. But for those people that haven't heard about it, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about what it's all about.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So, it started, it stems from the Royal Free Charity, and when the Royal Free London Trust took over and acquired Barnet and Chase Farm hospitals, the charity at the Royal Free, which is independent of the trust, decided to also expand and set up the Chase Farm charity and the Barnet Hospital charity. So they're completely separate brands. So we have everything that was in Chase Farm is Chase Farm Hospital Charity, but we all come under the umbrella of the Royal Free Charity.
Right. Now, there's been a lot of strong feeling locally over the last few years concerning the future of Chase Farm. Here's a chance for local people to really rally around and support the hospital.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's so much excitement and enthusiasm towards the charity and the hospital. We've really felt the enthusiasm for the hospital, and what we want to do is enable people that want to support the hospital, now that we know it's got its future security, to be able to do that, and we provide a route for people to be able to fundraise for their local hospital.
Right, so what are the main objectives of the Chase Farm charity? What are you trying to raise money for?
Well, we do three things as a charity. We fund anything that supports and improves the experience of being in hospital or being a patient of the hospital for patients. We support funding medical equipment, and we also support things like research, but mainly what we talk about are the little touches and big differences. So little touches are things like we provide care packs. If someone's admitted to a ward and they've brought nothing with them, we can give them a toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, a flannel, the real basics, but things that make a real difference to people. We now manage the hospital volunteers who do fantastic work, but we actually support the volunteers within the hospital and any roles that they want to undertake. And some of the other smaller things we do are help fund things that brighten up the hospital corridors, some artwork, paintings, and then there are the bigger things. And the way we describe it is that the NHS provides the chair, we provide the cushion. Right. So it's the things that make a difference, that are above and beyond what the NHS do.
Right, because I guess some people always say, well, shouldn't the NHS pay for that? But I think everybody knows the financial situation of the NHS. It's not possible for them to provide every little comfort, but that's the idea, or one of the ideas that you're trying to do. Yeah,
it is. It's those comfort things that make a difference. So it could be, for example, in the oncology and haematology unit, we've supported them to get the patient kitchen redecorated and get new surfaces put in. So something as simple as that really makes a difference. It's the patient kitchen, so it's really not a priority, but it really needed doing. There are some wards that have got waiting rooms for family members that really need looking at, and that's something we can do, and it's never going to be a priority for the NHS, so definitely a project for the charity.
And I believe certainly at the Royal Free they're providing patient support groups and as you mentioned, various research projects as well.
Yes, it's unlikely we would support research because there isn't a research element at Chase Farm Hospital. Right. But if there is research work going on at the Royal Free, it's likely that will then benefit people, whatever hospital there are at the trust.
Right. Now, the Royal Free Charity, I believe, raised about £15 million last year, which seemed a staggering amount.
It is a phenomenal amount, and it's quite incredible. And I started in December, and my job was to launch the charity at Barnet and Chase Farm. We're not expected to raise £15 million.
Not this year, anyway.
Not this year. It's a huge ask. They're very well established, but we are an active charity. So not only do we fundraise ourselves, but we actually provide ways for the community who want to fundraise on behalf of the hospital to be able to do that.
Right, so it's early days yet, but how are things going so far?
Things are going fantastically well, and I think that's more because of the response we've had from people within the hospital. The staff are fully on board. They've approached us asking, can we do this project? Can we do that? And then that enables us to be able to go out to the community and actually say, for example, the wards in the Highlands Wing, which have an enclosed garden on either side, they're looking to create a fantastic outdoor space. So a stroke rehabilitation garden and a dementia support garden, and really lovely spaces for people to be able to sit outside, and those are on the top floors to be able to look at. And that's the kind of thing we can then go to the community and get the community behind it, because it's a specific project and it benefits everybody.
Right, now I imagine that a lot of people that contribute to the charity are ex-patients or current patients at Chase Farm. But what about local sponsors? Do you find that local companies perhaps are going to be willing to support?
We're hoping so, and that's really where my colleague Savi comes in. We have a dedicated community fundraiser that is her job. So she is there to work with the hospital to find out what the needs are, and then to go out and work with the community, work with local groups, schools, but businesses as well, and see how they can support us.
Right, and the other thing to mention, I guess, for individual donations is, of course, you can claim some certain tax advantages from gift aid on that. You
can. There's lots of ways to donate, which I'll come to, but actually, yes, if someone's a UK taxpayer, then they can gift aid any donation, which means really they just have to tick a box and provide their full address and confirm that they pay tax, and we get an additional 20% on top of their donation, which doesn't come from them, so there's no additional cost to them. It's 20% on top of their donation, which makes a huge difference.
Right, and just to reiterate something I think you mentioned at the beginning of this interview, is that any donations that come in via Chase Farm will be allocated to Chase Farm.
Yes, absolutely. So we're all part of the Royal Free Charity Group, but each hospital has distinct funds. So any money coming into Chase Farm will go to Chase Farm Hospital. And not only that, within Chase Farm Hospital, if someone wants to donate or make a donation or raise funds for a particular ward or a particular area, we can make sure that that money gets allocated and is designated for that specific purpose.
So if people wanted to perhaps hold a coffee morning or a jumble sale or something like that, that's quite okay with you to do?
Yes, it is. And actually, if people do want to do that kind of fundraising, we can support them. So we can provide, for example, backdrops and tablecloths that have the charity logo on. We can provide charity tins or collection buckets, pens and T-shirts and other branded goods that will really help them with their fundraising efforts.
And what about volunteers generally? Are you looking for volunteers to come and join your team?
Always looking for volunteers. And actually there are so many different volunteering roles. So there are specific roles. So if people want to become a volunteer to work on a ward, then we have roles to do that. We provide training and they have to go through a formal process to become a volunteer. And they have to be able to commit at least 4 hours or half a day a week for a minimum of 6 months. But the kind of roles we have vary from supporting with admin and filing to actually working on the wards, but also actually helping to run the charity. So, for example, there are times when we need people that are happy to stand with a collection tin for a couple of hours in a shop and things like that.
Right, and these could be people of all ages. You're not putting any age limits or anything?
It's 17 plus,
right.
And there are some reasons around that, but we have a dedicated volunteer supervisor called Beverly on site, and she's the person to contact.
Right. So how would you like to see the Chase Farm charity evolve over the next 12 months? I know you've only been going for a month or two so
yeah.
far. But...
well, we have really ambitious plans. We're working closely with the hospital to find out what the needs are, so that actually what we're doing is not just fundraising, but actually fundraising for specific purposes. And it's really lovely to hear kind of stories and be able to go back to people and say what their money has contributed to. So I think what we're looking to do is really establish ourselves to make sure people know us, and make sure we can actually show people what we are doing, where their money's going. And we don't have an income target because we're starting from scratch. But obviously, 15 million at the Royal Free race is very ambitious.
The more the merrier.
Absolutely.
I was reading that the Royal Free was actually founded in 1828 from charitable donations, so it's sort of gone full circle in a way.
It has, and actually, it's something that the trust are very proud of. And David Sloman, the chief executive of the Royal Free Trust, is a real advocate of the charity, and actually quotes that quite a lot. That actually the trust background was a charitable start, and so that actually is something he really supports.
Right, that's good. So next question is, how can people get in touch if they want to raise some funds or find out a bit more? How's the best way of getting in touch with you?
The simplest way, well, there are two ways. If people are within the hospital, right across the hospital in most wards and out in the public areas and in the clinics, we have charity display boards. So they're specific for the Chase Farm charity. They contain all our information in them. That's the best way if you're within the hospital. Externally, if people are listening online, our website is probably the best way. So that's royalfreecharity.org.
Right.
And our contact details are on there. At the moment, because we're newly established, we don't have a direct line, only an internal extension number.
Right.
So hopefully we'll have more details about that to follow. But people can still get in touch with us just by looking up the Royal Free Charity or looking inside the hospital. All of our information's around.
Right. Or, of course, people can always get in touch with us here at Radio Enfield, and we'll be pleased to put them in touch. Well, Alison, many thanks for coming up to talk to us about the Chase Farm charity. We wish you every success in your ambitions, and we look forward to you exceeding that 15 million target. Maybe not this year, but shortly anyway.
That would be fantastic. And if someone is looking to ways to raise funds, there are actually a range of ways of doing that. It doesn't necessarily mean we're looking for people to make financial contributions. They can actually support the charity in many different ways. And
just by giving some time.
Yeah, and or supporting, putting us in contact with people that might want to arrange an event, might want to do something active themselves. So we put on events where people can. We have marathon places which people can bid for. We have skydives and bike rides and things like that. So people can actually, if they know of somebody, it might not be themselves, can actually fundraise through different events and activities.
Right. Okay, well, Alison, many thanks once again.
Thank you.
Radio Enfield. Your hospital station through the night.